There are millions of examples you can benefit from or use as reference when it comes to color grading. Films that look outstanding both in Hollywood and in independent cinema have become increasingly popular over the past few years. Especially films shot on film stock, which are also personal favorite of mine, often have an image quality that feels genuinely unattainable. However, although many scenes in these films are shot with film cameras, digital cameras are also used for certain scenes, and visually it is impossible to distinguish film from digital. This is where the color grading becomes evident. My assumption is that footage shot on film is used as a reference, and the same look is then applied to digital footage. Unfortunately, I do not know anyone working on large film productions, so this is purely an assumption. If you have any information on this, please feel free to enlighten me. Coming back to our topic, creating a look from any reference image is actually done by following certain rules. By following these fundamental rules, you can also achieve the look of a major production. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to do this in Davinci Resolve using these basic rules. There are 3 rules and I'm going to break down every one of them. If you are ready, let's continue on the color page. Okay, I have a log image like this. I will use a frame from David Fincher's 2011 film The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo as a reference image. This film was shot digitally on RED cameras and the negative format is Red Code RAW. According to IMDb, a Fuji Eternal look was applied afterward. I'm lucky because the footage I have also is in Red RAW format. To use our reference image properly, we will of course use scopes. Because parade, waveform and vector scope each provides different types of information about our image. We will evaluate all of them one by one. I have also arranged the layout so we can quickly compare the clip we are grading with the reference image. First, let's talk about this. When we look at a reference image, what should we understand? And what questions should we ask? What are the elements that give this image a cinematic quality? The first thing we need to understand is where the contrast of the image sits. How much detail can we see in the shadows? How much highlight compression is there? Are there any color tones present in the shadows or in the highlights? These are the questions that should come to mind at first glance. After that, we can start thinking directly about color. What is the level of saturation? Are the colors very vivid or do they sit at a more neutral point? These kind of questions help us draw a conclusion. When we examine this reference image, we can see that a green-blue tone is dominant in the highlights. At the same time, the overall brightness level stays below 640 IRE, which we can see in the both parade and waveform. On a vector scope, we can see that the image generally leans toward blue and cooler tones. Because of the grass, there is a noticeable green saturation, but overall, cool and similar tones dominate. Now, let's move on to our main image. First, I will convert the image to Rec. 709 using color space transform. As I mentioned earlier, this is Red RAW footage. To work in Davinci White Gamut color space, I set the color space to Red White Gamut RGB and the gamma curve to log 3G10. In my project settings, the timeline color space is set to Davinci White Gamut Intermediate, and the output color space is set to Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. I'm going to first add a node and move it to the very end. On the first node, I'm going to apply the color space transform effect from the FX library. Here, I'm setting the input color space to Red White Gamut RGB, the input gamma to Red Log 3G10, the output color space to Davinci White Gamut, and the output gamma to Davinci Intermediate. For tone mapping, we can select none. Then, on the next node, I'm going to add another color space transform. This time, the input color space is Davinci White Gamut. The input gamma is Davinci Intermediate. The output color space is Rec. 709. And the output gamma is Gamma 2.4. For tone mapping, you can choose either Davinci or luminous mapping. This time, I'm going to stick with the Davinci. For the gamut mapping methods, let's choose saturation compression. Okay, with this setup, we have manually converted our image to Rec. 709. Now I'm looking at the parade scope and comparing it with the reference image. It is clearly visible that this image sits between 250 and 900 IRE. In the reference image, the range stays below 640 IRE and the blacks are well preserved. This means we need to lower the overall exposure level of our image. First, let's label the first and the last nodes to avoid any confusion. We can call them CST and CST out. Then I'm going to create another node. In the primaries panel, I'm going to lower offset carefully without damaging the image. This level is sufficient for now. Of course, it's not a perfect match yet. highlights are still a bit high, we can address this by creating a curve without breaking the overall integrity of the image. I'm going to add a new node. Then I'm going to activate Editable Splines from the menu in the top right corner of the Curves panel. This allows us to achieve smoother transitions. I first raise the highlight point slightly using the handle. Then gently I'm going to pull the main point downwards. We can do the same for blacks and the shadows. To prevent the blacks from crashing, I'm going to lift this point slightly and move the curve a bit to the right. This is before and this is after. It looks like we may have pushed the highlights a bit too much. When we compare the two images, the light on the character's face does not appear that compressed in the reference. Of course, you can fine-tune this further as you go. It doesn't have to be perfect from the start. This is the change we made after Rec 709. As you can see, with just two nodes, we are able to bring our image into the same visual world as the reference image. This was the first and most important rule I mentioned at the beginning of the video. The closer the exposure values are between images, the more similar the look you can achieve. From here, we can move on to the second fundamental rule. It's the color harmony. I will continue with broader tonal adjustments. When we look at the reference image, we can see that cooler tones dominate, which is also clearly visible on the vector scope. The entire image leans toward the cooler region of the circle. When I compare this with my image, I can see that the distribution is more balanced. To achieve the same feeling, I will first adjust the white balance. I'm adding a node before the exposure node. I usually place the white balance node at the very beginning, but if you have a better method, please write it in the comments. And now I'm going to right-click this node and select Linear from the Gamma menu. Then I'm going to reduce the luminance mixer to 0. After that, using the gain wheel and paying close attention to the skin tones, I'm trying to match the same overall tone. This adjustment will slightly distort the skin tones, but that's fine. I'm going to fix that later in the tutorial. This is before and this is after. With this, we have matched the overall tone. When comparing the two images, we will inevitably see some differences. For example, the blue tone in the highlights is a bit too strong. We can also see this in the parade scope. To fix this, I'm going to add another node and slightly reduce the blue channel in the gain wheel within the primaries panel. Once again, we get closer to a similar tone. This is before all the changes and this is after. In my opinion, with very minimal adjustments without breaking the nature of the image or over stylizing it, we are progressing quite well. We can name this last node highlights. Now let's do the same for blacks and shadows, but this time using a parallel node. Since these are secondary adjustments, using the same signal gives more accurate results. For this, I'm going to use the log wheels in the primaries panel. When we look at the reference image, the lower region is well preserved, but there are also areas where black is truly black without crashing. So it doesn't look like we need much adjustment here, but we can still fine-tune it slightly. This is before, this is after. I lowered it just a bit. Now I'm going to move to the other node in the parallel layer. Here we can start comparing the colors in the image. To adjust the overall hue and saturation levels, I will use custom curves again. We can name this node log wheels and also label the other one hue versus hue. In the custom curves panel, I'm going to go to hue versus hue. Let's select green from the colors below, since it is the most dominant color in our image. I then pull it down slightly, shifting the greens toward a more teal tone. After that, in the hue versus saturation panel, I'm going to select green again and reduce its saturation. This is before and this is after. This is the before and after following the parallel changes. This part requires some trial and error. The more time you spend, the more accurate the result will be. Let's compare the two images again. The highlights feel a bit too compressed to me once more, so I'm going to go back to the curve node and adjust it again. Yes, that looks much better. Now we can start working on more specific areas of the image. I want to correct the character's skin tones. At the same time, green tones have started to dominate the image overall, which we can also fix. First, I'm going to add a node. Then I'm going to right-click on it and select Add Layer Node. Layer Node is going to help us make the adjustments that I mentioned. Layer nodes work similarly to layers in Photoshop. The adjustments on the top do not affect the node below, which is why I prefer using them. We will use the bottom node for skin tones, meaning the characters. I could use a qualifier here, but there's no need to go that deep. Instead, I'm going to use Magic Mask to separate the characters. I'm going to select the characters using points. We can see the selection by toggling the mask overlay. For better masking, I'm choosing better and slightly increasing the denoise. Now we can track the selection. Once tracking is finished, we can turn off the overlay. Then in the primaries panel, I'm going to use the offset again to bring the skin tones to the correct point. This is before, this is after. As you can see, we have neutralized the blue tones on the skin tone, and overall we have separated the characters from the background. Now, with the top node in the layer node, I want to fine-tune the overall tone a bit more. Since the characters are isolated using the magic mask, the changes I make here will only affect the background. When I compare it with the reference, I feel that the greens in my image are slightly more vibrant. Again, in the primaries panel, I'm going to lower the green channel in offset wheel. Maybe we can also increase blue a bit. I'm doing a before and after with both nodes together, and the difference is very clear. We reduce color dominance in the image and bring the characters forward more. When I play back the footage, the look works really well. I'm quite satisfied so far. Okay, everything we did after the exposure adjustments was aimed to achieving color harmony. Moving from broad adjustments like white balance to more specific ones like skin tones is always the best practice. Our third main rule is the texture. It refers to whether the image has spatial effects such as grain, halation or bloom, how strong they are, and whether the image feels sharp or soft. All these aspects are related to texture. This part largely depends on how stylized you want the image to be. I won't add too much here. I'm going to add one more node and apply the film look creator effect from the effects library. I'm not going to use any built-in looks, so I'm going to select clean slate from the presets. I will only use a small amount of split toning. If you're not familiar with what this does, I have a tutorial on it, so you can check that out. In short, it applies different tones to highlights and shadows. My main purpose in using film look creator is the grain effect. Let's take a closer look to our image. I'm not sure how well it comes through with YouTube compression, but when used subtly, it adds a very pleasing texture to the image. I'm certain it exists in our reference image as well, even if it's not obvious here. Lastly, if you're not happy with the intensity of the colors, you can also use subtractive saturation and richness here. These are very useful tools as well. Alright, before finalizing, I want to add one last adjustment. Let's add another node and name it mid-tone detail. When I compare the two images, my image feels slightly too sharp, which is very normal and could even be due to lens choices on set. In the reference image, I can see a subtle softness in the midtones. To address this, I simply reduce mid-tone detail in the primaries panel without overdoing it or losing too much detail. When you compare before and after, the difference isn't very obvious, but it can be felt. So this is the most important thing about texture. It's more important to feel it than to clearly see it. Finally, let's match the image sizes and compare them one last time. Yeah, I think we have reached a very solid result. Of course, it's important to remember that our goal is never to achieve a 100% match. We are simply trying to bring the images closer into the same visual world and create the same feeling. And we achieved this without even touching a saturation slider. So in conclusion, if you follow these three fundamental rules in order, exposure, color, and texture, you can achieve success with any look you want. I hope nothing was too confusing. If it was, please let me know in the comments. If you would like to support me, even leaving a simple thank you comment is more than enough. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.